For thousands of years, people have talked about the miracles of Jesus. Moments when the impossible suddenly became possible. Storms stopped with a command, the sick were healed with a touch, and even the dead were called back to life. Today we're looking at 7 powerful miracles of Jesus that changed the lives of everyone who witnessed them. One night, the disciples were crossing the sea when a storm began to rage. Waves crashed against their boat and fear filled the air. Then, in the distance, they saw something unbelievable. A figure walking on the water. It was Jesus. Peter called out, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you." Jesus simply said, "Come." Peter stepped out of the boat and began walking toward him. But when he noticed the wind and the waves, fear took over. He began to sink. Peter cried out, "Lord, save me!" Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and lifted him up. Even in moments of doubt, Jesus was there to rescue him. But this was not the only time Jesus showed his power over nature. On another journey across the sea, the disciples faced a terrifying storm. The wind roared, and waves began filling their boat with water. Meanwhile, Jesus was sleeping peacefully. Panicked, the disciples woke him. "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Jesus stood up and looked at the raging storm. Then he spoke just 3 words, "Peace, be still." Instantly, the wind stopped. The waves became calm. The sea turned silent. The disciples stared in amazement. Even the wind and the waves obeyed him. But Jesus didn't only show power over nature. He also showed compassion for people in need. One day, thousands of people gathered to hear Jesus teach. As the day went on, the crowd became hungry, but there was almost no food. A young boy had only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. It didn't seem like enough. Jesus took the food, gave thanks, and told the disciples to distribute it. As they began sharing the bread and fish, something incredible happened. The food kept multiplying. Everyone ate. Thousands of people were fed. And when they finished, there were still baskets of food left over. But the miracles of Jesus were not only about feeding the hungry, they were also about restoring broken lives. One day, Jesus was teaching inside a crowded house. So many people were there that no one else could enter. Outside, 4 men carried their paralyzed friend on a mat. They were determined to bring him to Jesus. When they couldn't get through the crowd, they climbed onto the roof. Then they carefully opened it and lowered their friend down right in front of Jesus. Seeing their faith, Jesus spoke to the man, "Get up, take your mat, and walk." Immediately, the man stood up. For the first time in years, he walked out of the house on his own feet. But physical weakness wasn't the only suffering Jesus healed. One day, he would restore sight to a man who had never seen the world. As Jesus was leaving the city of Jericho, a blind man named Bartimaeus sat beside the road. When he heard that Jesus was passing by, he began shouting, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me!" People told him to be quiet, but he shouted even louder. Jesus stopped. He called the man forward. Bartimaeus said, "Lord, I want to see." Jesus replied, "Your faith has healed you." Instantly, the man's sight was restored. For the first time in his life, he could see. But not every miracle happened in front of a crowd. Some came from a single act of desperate faith. For 12 years, a woman suffered from a serious illness. Doctors could not help her. She had spent everything she had trying to be healed. When she heard that Jesus was passing through the crowd, she believed something. "If I just touch his garment, I will be healed." She pushed through the crowd and touched the edge of his robe. Instantly, her suffering stopped. Jesus turned and asked, "Who touched me?" The woman stepped forward, trembling. Jesus looked at her with compassion. "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." But the most shocking miracle of all would happen when hope seemed completely gone. A moment when Jesus faced something no one could defeat, death itself. One of Jesus' close friends was named Lazarus. When Lazarus became sick and died, he was buried in a tomb. By the time Jesus arrived, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. People believed it was too late, but Jesus walked to the tomb and said, "Take away the stone." Then he called out loudly, "Lazarus, come out." Suddenly, the man who had been dead walked out of the tomb, still wrapped in burial cloth. The crowd stood frozen in disbelief. It was a moment that showed the world something incredible. Jesus even had power over death. These miracles remind us that nothing is impossible for Jesus. Power over nature, power over sickness, even power over death. Which of these miracles amazed you the most? And if you've ever experienced a miracle in your own life, share it in the comments. I would love to read your story.